Hi, this is Mary, the medicine woman. And today I'm going to have a conversation with the very smart and talented and bright Olivia Miller, who was a student of mine in my pharmacy. She is a future pharmacist. She's a P3 student at Neomed. And today we're going to talk about work-life balance from two different perspectives. Olivia and I are in very different points of our life, so it should be a fun conversation. The three things that we'd like to cover for you today are basically the definition of work-life balance, how things change for you throughout your life, and just kind of sum up some ways that we both from different perspectives have found a way to stay well in these unprecedented times. So welcome, Olivia.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Mary. I'm so excited. And
Oh,
once you mentioned this to me, there's so many things that came to mind. So
I know. And
excited to converse.
well, yes. And the one thing you said to me that I had told you I had to keep writing it down because it's so foreign to me is you said, what's the point of working if you're not living? And I'm like, well, gee, I never thought of it because my motto has been, I work, therefore I am. I know, which to you sounds very
Totally opposite. Yeah.
totally opposite. And so I love this, this perspective of what's the point of working if you're not living. And I think we'll always kind of go back to that. But first, when we talk about work-life balance, like I mentioned in my last post about a different way to look at balance, how do you approach work-life balance?
So for me, I think, like I said, the word balance is different for everyone.
Oh.
So at my point in life, when I was an undergraduate student, I had a very life-changing conversation with a person that I had never met before, but they said to me, basically, we are put on this earth to work our life away, and then we retire, and then we're supposed to start living then. And I'm like, you know what? That's weird. I never thought of it like that, but it sounds like, okay, yeah, you're right, but we don't have to do that. Like, why is that what we're all falling under? Is we just are finding the job to pay the bills and then go on with life, where we could look at it from a different aspect and kind of say like, okay, how can we find a job that's going to make us live while we work? You understand what I'm saying? By that,
I do. So when you say that, because I have really struggled with that through the years to try to find the job that helps me live.
yeah.
And are you speaking just about like financially that I can work less hours? Because I think that's what a lot of people hear. Are you talking about something else?
I'm talking something else. I know from my standpoint, it was very hard for me to decide what I wanted to do. I didn't have much guidance. It was just, okay, I'm good at this in school, but what is that going to do for me? How am I going to even enjoy that? So as a high school student, I didn't have much guidance. I went into, okay, I'm good at science. Let's see what's out there for science. And then once I started to get to my undergraduate years, I was kind of reconsidering science, and I'm like, I'm really not into blood. I'm not into the invasive things. What can I do? And then I came across the avenue of pharmacy. And the more I'm into pharmacy, the more I like it, the more I'm like, this is the path for me. Financially, it will be great. But just in terms of, I think that I was put here to help others out. And for me, that's through pharmacy. That's through patient care. And my part of the world, I know we were talking the other day about just everyone being connected. I'm going to help these people out through the avenue of pharmacy, and they're going to help everyone else out through a different avenue. So for me, not only is it just financially, but just how I can live to make a difference on this world is through pharmacy.
Oh my gosh, I
So
love that.
it is,
I
it
love
is,
that. So you're talking about like a different kind of like, it's okay. I'm hearing you say you're not separating your life from your work, which we were talking
right.
about the other day. A part of, being like looking at it from that perspective, like you're here for a purpose that feeds your life. It's not you're separate. When I leave the pharmacy, I'm not a different woman. I'm me wherever I go. I should bring me to my work.
Yeah,
Right. And
exactly.
then that feeds me in a way. Right.
Yeah.
And I think the person that talked about working your whole life and then retiring, it's I never thought about it this way, but it's kind of like fighting through a level of exhaustion, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like just hating it. But what you're talking about and how I've recently over the last decade approached my work is a living through doing. And I'm
Right.
not exhausted anymore, but I used to be that person who hated it. Right.
And I agree with that. And I think that being with you this past week really opened my eyes. And like I said, when I came into this rotation, I had total expectations. This is going to be something I've done before, and it was not. You open my eyes to a different side of how to look at pharmacy, how to go to whatever job you have, and it's not what the company makes of it, it's what you make of it. It's not who you're working for or where you're working, but it's how you're going to apply yourself and how you're going to go to work and live there and not just go to work and work.
Oh
You're
my
going
God.
to go and make a difference every day. And like you said, when you leave, you're still the same person. You don't go to work as pharmacist and go home as mom or wife. You're the same
Mhm.
person through and through. You have all of those titles, but you're always the same person. And I feel like a lot of people don't look at it that way. They do look at the work-life balance and it's two separate entities, but really
Mm.
it's all one. Your work is part of your life and you need to figure out a way to make sure that you're living while you're working.
Yeah, I love that. You're you no matter where you go. Yeah.
Mhm,
Yeah, I love that. Something else that you said is how things can change throughout your life. Like my
mhm.
kids are your age. So obviously I'm at a different point in my life. And I always tell my girls that are your age is you can have everything you want, but not at the same time. So then
Mhm.
how are you looking ahead insofar as, because you're a very intelligent person, like are you planning for a family or vacations or whatever it is that's gonna require your time and energy aside from your career?
Yeah, so that is a great question. I call myself a gypsy because I'm kind of always just going with the flow. I'm all over the place. I love to like pick up and move on somewhere else just whenever. It doesn't matter.
Mhm.
I also, though, am a planner. So it's
Oh,
kind of hard to balance those two things.
love
I
that.
every day have a plan in my phone of what time I'm going to wake up to have coffee to the end of the day to my reading. Like everything is planned out, but it doesn't matter where I'm doing that. So, in terms of planning for the
Mm.
future, I always think of everything's going to happen for a reason. Things will work out the way they're supposed to. So, for example, this next year of pharmacy school, it's all of our final rotations. We're at different sites. I had everything planned out the way I wanted it, but you don't always get what you want. So the ending plan that I got is different than what I had planned for, but I'm already like, okay, well, this is how this is going to affect me now. And it's things are working out for the better. And it's not what I wanted, but it's what's happening. So for me, in terms of planning for a family and all of those things, I don't really have a timeline because I think they will just come as they're supposed to. And
Wow.
one day I'll know, okay, this is time for me to have a family. And all these things that I want right now, I might not want then. And my mind has changed on things. And I know that it's just kind of fluid for me, whether I do want to have a family at this point in time, but maybe in a couple years I'll realize, oh, I don't want a family. Or maybe I just want a spouse and I don't want children, those kind of
Right.
things. So I just am always very open minded to those things. But I do plan for where I want to be. So in a year, I want to be done with my like pharmacy degree and I
Okay.
want to be establishing a career.
Okay.
So
So that's where you keep that's really interesting. So it's both. You have things that you want and then room for whatever happens.
yeah,
Wow, I
yeah.
never, oh my gosh, when I was your age, things were so like rigid and fixated, and that causes a
Mhm.
lot of angst, I think, for
Yeah.
people and anxiety and anxiousness. And also, like, you feel pushed down then. I look back and I think, well, I wanted it to happen this way and it didn't. And then that was somehow I took that like personally, like that means there's something wrong with me.
Mhm.
And then I failed in some way. And I don't get that from you at all.
Yeah. I think it's just there's been a lot of things in my life already that even when I started out in pharmacy, I went to a counselor to kind of help me with the classes. I didn't have much
Mm.
guidance. I do have an older sibling, but she didn't take the route of college. So it was all kind of figure it out as you go. And my parents didn't really understand the pathways either. So it was all on me, which was totally fine.
Mhm.
But I went to a counselor for guidance and she told me you need a second option. You need to come up with something else because pharmacy is very hard. And for
Hmm.
me, that was kind of like, so you don't think I could do it? You know nothing about me, but you're every time I come back to you, it's what's your other option? And I told her finally, I'm like, there's no other option. I'm going to get through this and I'm going to do pharmacy because that's what I want to do. There's no other option. I don't want to go down a different avenue. And it just kind of opened my eyes because all of the things that she had told me you're going to need to do this. You're going to need to do this. And I didn't always live up to those expectations that she had, but I went different routes and I'm beyond where I want to be. So it's
Wow.
kind of like you can hear all these things and people can tell you a million different things, but you're going to have a different pathway than everybody else, no matter what.
Right.
And so it's like, I don't know, just in terms of those things, I kind of realized that I once read something that said, you need to be secure enough in yourself that it doesn't matter who comes and goes or what comes and goes out of your life. And I very much stick by that. Like,
Yeah.
if I'm secure enough in me that I think what I am doing is going to get me where I want to be, then that's all that matters. I can
Yeah.
take advice from people, but I need to be grounded enough in myself to know what I want and how to get there. And like I said, I love to hear advice, but when people do like kind of push you down and then you get through it, you realize, okay, it's all up to you. Like everything is on your shoulders. You can get through everything and plan for what you want and get yourself there.
I think you've hit on something really interesting because I think it wasn't until I was in my 40s that really became like okay with myself. And if I apply that, like being really solid with who I am and liking myself and even loving myself and knowing that I do have abilities and I'm not going to listen to other people, that does help. That did help me with work-life balance because I
Mhm.
wasn't like just going everywhere else to try to fit into a mold that people thought I should be or meet an expectation that wasn't in line with my value system. And it
Yeah,
seems like at a very young age, you're like really clear on that. And I think that foundation will help with everything, especially work-life balance, because you're not going to be like pulled away with something that doesn't matter to you. Like I
yeah,
can't tell you how many times I was pulled down a direction. It was like, well, I'm exhausted now. And that was a complete waste of my time. And no one was served by that.
yeah,
That's very out of balance. And then to have to
right.
come back to yourself, but you're like already there. To be like, you're
I
already at
tried.
yourself. You don't have to be spinning around yourself um and then coming back. So how has specifically like the times, these really crazy times that we're in, how has that changed what you wanted, or does it not change what you want, or how you've balance things out for yourself because of, it sounds like to me you don't let the circumstances sway you too much.
Yeah. So I would say for me, it hasn't changed much outside of just what's going on in terms of COVID. There's been so much that has changed in this past year in my life, so much. And it's just made me more secure in myself, I guess, just to kind of realize like you are like the only one who is going to get you through anything. Again, it's just even living for COVID, I think my living situation for quarantine was 4 different houses. I was in
Wow.
4 different places just because of different things that were going on, different people getting COVID, different
Mhm.
circumstances. And it was always the consistent part of my life was me. Really. There was
Mhm.
no person, no, I mean, my 2 little dogs, but besides that, it's just me. And it didn't change anything for me, but solidified that I love that I'm in pharmacy, first off, because this is crazy times and I get to be a part of it
Yeah.
and make a difference. Even
Yeah.
when we're giving these vaccines and people are thanking me,
Hmm.
I went home the other night and I just thought like, these people really think that I am making this huge difference. And it doesn't feel like it when I'm giving you an injection, but to them, it's such this impactful moment. And it really like makes me realize like, oh, I'm doing the right thing. I'm so glad that I chose this path. And the way that I have to look at it is not as this is a job. This is so draining. We chose
Mhm.
this career, we chose this path, and I need to step up in the times that I'm expected to. And even during COVID, our hospital that I work at was very, very busy. So they were constantly asking us, and especially us as students, all of our
Yeah.
schooling went to online. So we had more free time to come into work. So they
Right.
were constantly asking us to come. And as scared as I was to go, I went. I mean, You go, you step up, you come home and you put your clothes in the washer. If I don't have to see, I had a pregnant sister at the time and I couldn't see her for a little bit of time because
Right.
I didn't want to get anybody sick, but I had to do what I had to do because I want to care for other people's family members the same way I would care for mine. So
How did you care for yourself during that time? There's a lot of pressure on you as a student more than any other student in history, right? So
yeah,
how did you, being so young and being a student and having such a high expectation put on you, how did you find time then to like take care of yourself and do fun things for you? Was that hard?
yeah.
Did you feel guilty?
I didn't, I honestly felt like this was the most time I've ever had in my life. And when we were first told it's going to
Wow.
be 2 weeks, I was like, oh, wow, like we have 2 weeks that we're just going to have nothing to do. This is bizarre. So I'm going to work out. I'm going to eat out. This is the only time I have to take advantage of it that I'm going to have. Usually we have mandatory schooling that we have to go to 4 hours at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't have that anymore. So I was like, I'm going to capitalize on this time and use it to make me the healthiest me that I've ever been. So that was really cool because I got to get into a workout routine, get into
Mm-hmm.
eating right, and just kind of having a relationship with that part of like diet and
Yeah.
my body, really.
I
And
did
I
the,
had
I did the same thing. That's so interesting. Yeah.
we just had a lot of time and I've done all the little fad diets and different, I love yoga and things of that nature, but
Wow.
really getting to the core of what I can stick to, you know?
Yeah, so now that it's like lightened up and you might not like you were out and
Mhm.
you're going to start rotating as a P4 like very soon, which means
Yeah,
that's a 40-hour work week.
right.
So have you committed to yourself that you're also going to do the yoga and make sure you eat healthy? And that's
Yeah.
okay, good for you.
Yeah, it's definitely, like I said, it just took me a minute to, I'm not sure what type of workouts you do. I know you mentioned biking and stuff. Once
Mhm.
you find that thing that you like, you look forward to it. And
Yeah.
I never had that in my life. I know
Wow.
my dad is a very active person and he'll spend multiple hours in the gym. And for me, it's not feasible. And I might do it for a week, but I'm not going to stick to it.
Mhm.
But finding myself and being able to listen to my body, that's something that yoga really taught me was if you want to
Yeah.
have a rest day, have a rest day
Oh my
because you
gosh.
deserve it.
Again,
But
it took me decades to learn that. Yeah.
yeah,
And just
it's
rest. It's like no big deal. You don't have
mhm,
to need, you don't need an act of Congress to take a
yeah,
rest.
right. I know. And you feel that though. I would feel guilty for giving my body a rest, but it's it's telling me it's so tired, it's exhausted, it's asking me to have a rest. And then the next day I can get back into it and nothing will
Yes.
change.
Oh my
I'm
God.
still
Like,
healthy.
right. You didn't lose your health overnight. Like, oh
Yeah.
my God, I'm going to wake up and be a disaster. Um,
Right.
that's so good that you have that in such a young age. How about your mind? How do you know, because this is going to be like my next topic. How do you know when your mind needs a rest? And then how do you rest your mind? Or do
Yeah.
you even look at it that way?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I like to write, but for me,
Mm.
reading
Oh,
is my outlet at the end of the night. I used to do yoga at the end of the night, but then I found myself slipping out of that because, okay, I was doing 2 workouts a day at the time, and then I would shower, get ready for bed, and then I'm going to do yoga. And then I'm like, oh, should I shower again? It just wasn't working for me.
right.
So I'm like, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to start a book club with myself. So I started to read 1 book a month. And that was something I struggled with because, like you said, you want to give your mind a rest. And I'm in school right now, I'm working. And a lot of times I would feel guilty for reading anything outside of my pharmacy schooling
Right.
books or lectures,
Mhm.
any of those things. But then I realize I'm losing myself because that's something I enjoy by trying to like trick my mind into always feeling guilty and like, oh, you should be reading this, you should
Oh, I love
be
that.
studying, but I never set time aside for myself. I could go shopping for a half hour and wouldn't feel guilty about it, but I couldn't read anything else.
Oh
And
yeah. You
and
caught
so
yourself in something, didn't you?
yeah, so finally I was like, you know what? You're going to read 1 book a month. That's it. That's not a lot. You know,
Right.
you can do 30 minutes and I'm finding myself, I finished the book in a week because I'm up half the night reading, but
Yeah.
um, that's something that really rests my mind because
Mm.
it's feeding my mind at the same time, but it's getting my mind off of everything else. off of school, off of working
Yes.
out, off of anything. And it's just having me focus on that book. It's not staring at a TV screen. It's not any of those things. I'm not a big TV person anyways, but I just really think that's how I did a face mask and read a book. And
I
that's what I would do.
I love this for two reasons. First of all, it goes back to what we said in the beginning, and you said it really fast, but it was like, I'm going to lose myself if I don't do this. And
Mhm.
then that's the very self that you're bringing to everything that you do, right? Work, fun
Yeah.
stuff, your relationships. So it's really interesting how important it is to not lose yourself. And so then I wonder if a lot of the struggle with the burnout is, in essence, a kind of a losing of the self. Like
Yeah.
you just lost yourself and you're exhausted doing everything and you don't even know what or why, and you have lost that connection with yourself. And so if the biggest take home I got from this conversation is it really is about yourself, and coming back to that, and also having a little bit of structure, right?
Yes,
Like
definitely.
having a little bit of structure, setting a little tiny goals. You're going to work out. In your case, it's you're going to read. In my case, I decided to do two courses of P90X again, no matter what. I was going to do it, and
Yeah.
started to create Mary the Medicine Woman. And that's what I did to feed myself so I could come back to who I remembered that I was, right?
Yeah.
From way
That's awesome.
back. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, so those are my takeaways from this.
Yeah.
What have you taken away from this conversation?
Definitely the similar ideas. I think it's awesome that you started Marry the Medicine Woman. I know when I first reached out to you and I saw you email me back, I'm like, I wonder what that's all about. The name is Marry the Medicine Woman. And just kind of the fact that you keep saying, oh, I did this so much later in my life and you have it figured out now. It's refreshing to hear you say that, but it also has made me take away that not everyone is at the same point in their life in terms of this topic, and it might take people longer, and some people might already have it figured out, but again, that goes back to your individual self and just finding yourself and figuring that out.
I love
So
that you've just taken all of that, like you've let everyone off the hook. So know who, when you're listening to this and you're hearing us go through this, no matter where you are, it's never
yeah.
too late or too soon to
Mm-mm.
start finding yourself and creating your own balance in your life. So
Yeah.
thank you, Olivia. You're just such a bright light.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
thank you guys. Peace.
Bye everybody.